Life stopped being fair to me a long time ago. When I was 10 years old, my mother died. She wasn't just my mom, she was my entire world. The one who made everything feel safe. The house we lived in, hers. The business that kept us afloat, hers. She built everything from nothing and left it all behind, trusting that my father would take care of me. She was wrong. At first, my father just became distant. It was as if a switch flipped. He buried himself in work, barely acknowledging me. The once warm house felt cold and empty. I'd sit at the dinner table alone, staring at his empty seat, waiting for a conversation that never came. Then, Jessica entered the picture. I knew her. We went to the same school. But Jessica wasn't just some girl. She was my personal nightmare. My bully. She made my school life a living hell. She tripped me in the hallways, spread rumors, whispered cruel things behind my back, and made sure everyone knew I was worthless. She enjoyed seeing me miserable. And now, she was sitting at my dinner table, smiling like she'd never met me before. My father fell fast. Too fast. One day, she was just his new girlfriend. And the next, she was touching my mother's things, rearranging our furniture, and acting like she belonged. And my father? He didn't care. Then, she got pregnant. That's when my life completely fell apart. One evening, Jessica stood in my bedroom doorway, her arms crossed, a smug smirk on her face. "We need the space," she said casually. I looked past her, expecting my father to defend me, to say something, but he just stood there, arms crossed. "You're old enough to be on your own," he said without emotion. "It's time to grow up." And that was it. I was kicked out of the home my mother built. No warning, no remorse. I had nothing. No place to go, no family. I struggled, working meaningless jobs, sleeping on couches, just trying to survive, while they lived comfortably off the wealth my mother left behind. I stopped calling, stopped caring, let them have their life. And then fate intervened. My father died. Suddenly, Jessica must have thought everything would be hers. But when the will was read, she lost everything. Because my mother had been smart. Everything, the house, the business, the bank accounts, was never my father's to give. It was always mine. I could only imagine the shock on Jessica's face when she realized she had nothing. Then, one day, she showed up at my doorstep. The same one she kicked me out of. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. The once smug, confident Jessica looked desperate. "I have nowhere to go," she whispered. I let the silence stretch, just like she had years ago. I wanted her to feel it. The uncertainty, the fear, the realization that she had nothing. She looked at me waiting, hoping. "This was never yours," I finally said. "And it never will be." Then I shut the door, and, for the first time since my mother died, I finally had my life back. Let me tell you another story. I don't talk about this often. It's been buried deep inside me for years. But some memories never fade. They stay with you, haunting you in the quiet moments, reminding you of a past you never asked for. When I was 6 or 7 years old, one of the most traumatic things in my life happened. I remember it vividly. This isn't just a bad childhood memory. This is the kind of thing you see on the news, the kind of story that makes you wonder how people can be so cruel. My little sister was 5. My baby brother wasn't even walking yet, just crawling around, barely understanding the world. And we were trapped, locked in the back room of a trailer, for 3 days. My parents were on one of their drug binges. They had done this before, disappeared into their addiction, leaving us to fend for ourselves. My mother would come once a day, sliding a plate of food through the door. One plate. Enough for all 3 of us to share. She left a jug of apple juice, too. But that was it. On the first day, I had to use the restroom. I don't know if I came out at the wrong time or if my father was just looking for a reason to explode, but he snapped. He grabbed me by my hair, slung me across the room, and started kicking me. The force of it knocked the breath out of me. My little sister stood there, frozen in fear. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just watched. On the second day, we were just trying to keep ourselves distracted, playing with whatever toys we had. My sister tugged on my sleeve, whispering that she really had to go poop. I thought for a moment, trying to figure out what to do. We had a bucket for pee. That was fine. But poop? I spotted a yellow plastic frisbee in the corner of the room. It was all we had. I told her she could go on the frisbee. She did. And then we left it there, not really thinking much of it. We were just kids. We didn't know what else to do. On the third day, I woke up to my baby brother. He had eaten every bit of the poop on the frisbee. He was covered in it. I panicked. I ran out of the room, found my mother, and told her what had happened. She freaked out, grabbing him and shoving him into the shower, hosing him down. Then my father wanted answers. How was there poop in the room? Who did it? I told him. I told him Katie was too scared to come out, so I told her to go on the frisbee. Katie got a beating for it. But since I was the oldest, since I should have known better, I got the worst of it. I was beaten, thrown against the wall, and then forced to stand in the corner. I hadn't eaten since lunchtime the day before, but I wasn't allowed to sit. I wasn't allowed to rest. Just stand. All day. I begged for food. Just a cracker. Just a bite. Anything. I was beaten again for asking. By the end of the day, I couldn't even stand properly. My legs shook beneath me. My stomach twisted in on itself. I felt weak, lightheaded, like I was floating but sinking at the same time. And then I heard them. My mother laughing. My father mimicking my whining, mocking me as I swayed on my feet. That's when I realized something. They didn't just not care. They enjoyed it. That night, when I was finally allowed to lay down, I felt relief like never before. I wasn't thinking about escape or survival or the future. I was just grateful to not be standing. But the hunger? That didn't go away. It gnawed at me, a constant ache. And I lay there, staring at the ceiling, realizing that I had no idea when I would eat again. That was my childhood. That was my reality. And even now, all these years later, the memories still burn.